Stop it! Just leave him alone! Ilara's voice cracked, sharp with a desperation that cut through the icy wind of the high mountain valley. She threw herself between the snarling pack enforcers and the bloodied heap of rags huddled against the pack hall's stone foundation. The man, if he could even be called that, was shivering violently, his face obscured by a matted beard and grime, his scent a pungent mix of stale bread, alley filth, and something else, something wild, broken, and dangerously close to death. "He's starving," she pleaded, ignoring the menacing growl from the lead enforcer, a brute named Marcus. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds, if this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakening under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. "He's filth, Ilara," Marcus sneered, shoving her hard. She stumbled on the icy cobblestones, catching herself before she fell. An omegaless rogue. He broke pack law by begging near the Alpha's hall during the week of the sacred hunt. "He asked for scraps," Ilara cried, tears of cold and frustration stinging her eyes. "Scraps you were throwing to the hounds not 5 minutes ago." "It's the principle," Marcus said, drawing himself up, his thick fur-lined jacket making him seem twice as large. "Alpha Alaric demands purity. We have no place for the weak." He kicked at the beggar, a sharp, cruel strike. A sound ripped from the man's chest, not a human cry, but a low, agonizing groan that sounded terrifyingly like a snapped bone grating. Before Marcus could strike again, a second figure moved from the shadows of the alley. "That is enough, enforcer." The voice was quiet, yet it carried the authority of a winter storm. It was Lyra, Ilara's mother. Where Ilara was fire and impulse, Lyra was ice and calculation. She was thin, her face etched with the same poverty that marked them all in the Omega sector, but her spine was steel. Marcus turned, his lip curling. "Ah, the barren widow, come to protect the stray? Like mother, like daughter, a bleeding heart for things that should be left to die." Lyra ignored him, her gaze fixed on the man on the ground. "Pack law demands purity, you say, but the old law, the one our pure Alpha seems to forget, demands compassion. The moon goddess watches those who turn away the desperate, Marcus. Are you threatening me, widow?" "I am reminding you of your duty," Lyra said. She walked past him, her worn boots making no sound, and crouched beside the beggar. "He is under my protection." "He smells like death," Marcus spat. "If you take him in, the rot is on your house, not mine." "We are accustomed to rot," Lyra said, her voice dropping. "We live with it every day." Marcus stared, his small eyes narrowing. He wanted to argue, to strike them both, but something in Lyra's unblinking stare made him pause. It was one thing to bully Ilara, it was another to challenge Lyra, who was known to be moon-touched, a polite term for unsettlingly perceptive, perhaps even a little mad. "Fine," Marcus growled. "He dies in your hovel, not on the Alpha's stones. Get him out of my sight. The hunt begins at moonrise, and the Alpha wants the streets clear of all refuse. That includes the 3 of you." He shoved Ilara one last time for good measure, then signaled his men. They stalked off, their heavy boots loud in the sudden silence. Ilara rushed to her mother's side. "Mama, what have you done? We can't. We barely have enough firewood for ourselves. Look at him." The man was unconscious, or close to it. His breathing was a shallow, wet rattle. "We will do what we must," Lyra said. "Help me." Together, the 2 women, one driven by instinct, The other, by a quiet, unyielding faith, half-dragged, half-carried the dead weight of the stranger. They moved through the winding, refuse-strewn alleys of the Omega sector, the poorest part of the Silver Creek Pack territory. Their home was a small, drafty shack clinging to the edge of the ravine, far from the warmth and wealth of the Pack Hall. They got him into the small, leaning shed they used for curing herbs. It was barely warmer than the outside, but it was shelter. Lyra lit a small, precious tallow candle. In the flickering light, they saw the extent of the damage. He was more than beaten. He was starved. His rags were soaked in melted snow and something dark that smelled metallic. "Go," Lyra ordered Alara. "Boil the last of the yarrow, get water, and bring the smallest loaf, not the one for tonight, the stale one from yesterday." Alara hesitated. "Mama, that's our food for tomorrow's breakfast." "He will not live till moonrise without it, Alara. Go." Alara went. She hated this. She hated the cold, she hated the hunger, and most of all, she hated the fear. Marcus was right. Harboring a rogue, especially one this broken, was a death sentence. If Alpha Alaric found out, he would see it as a direct defiance. While she was gone, Lyra worked. She peeled away the filthy layers of rags from the man's torso to check for wounds. The skin was pale and stretched taut over a rack of ribs, but beneath the grime, it was unblemished by the usual rogue markings. No brands, no ritual scars. His hands, though caked in filth, were not the hands of a lifelong beggar. The nails were broken, but the shape of them, the long, tapered fingers, spoke of something different. She brushed the matted hair from his face. The bruises were severe, a deep purple spreading from his cheekbone. But it was his features that stopped her. Even swollen, they were sharp, aristocratic. He wasn't a rogue. A rogue was packless, desperate, usually half-mad. This man, even unconscious, felt contained. When Alara returned, the man was shivering so hard the cot rattled. "He's freezing. The blankets are thin." "Give me the water," Lyra said. They forced lukewarm, herb-laced water between his cracked lips. He coughed, then swallowed, a reflex. "Try the bread," Lyra instructed. Alara held a small, soaked piece to his mouth. "Please," she whispered, not knowing who she was talking to. "Please, you have to eat." A hand, shockingly fast, shot out and gripped her wrist. Alara screamed, dropping the bowl. The man's eyes were open. They were not the dull eyes of a dying vagrant. They were the color of a glacial crevasse, an impossible, piercing ice blue. They were filled with a blizzard, an ancient, terrifying storm of awareness and power that was utterly at odds with the broken body it inhabited. He held her gaze, his grip like a steel trap. He wasn't looking at her, he was looking into her. "Who?" His voice was a dry rasp, barely human. "Where?" "You're safe," Lyra said, placing a calm hand on his shoulder. "They're gone. You are in our care." The man's gaze shifted to Lyra. He studied her for a long moment, the intensity of his stare never wavering. Then, slowly, as if fighting 1,000 years of instinct, his fingers uncurled from Alara's wrist. He slumped back, the fire in his eyes banking, replaced by a sudden, devastating exhaustion. "Water," he whispered. This time, he drank. He ate the bread, his movements slow and pained, but deliberate. He ate like a man who hadn't forgotten what food was, but who had been denied it for a very long time. When the small loaf was gone, he pushed the bowl away. He wrapped the thin, horsehair blanket around himself, his shoulders shaking. "Why?" he rasped, looking at Lyra. "Why what?" Lyra asked. "Why? Help. The enforcers were going to kill you," Alara said, rubbing her wrist. "They should have," he whispered. turning his face to the rough-hewn wooden wall. "It would have been simpler." "Nothing is simple in Silver Creek," Lyra said, standing. "Rest. We will bring broth in the morning, if we can find it." She ushered Alara out, pulling the heavy door shut, plunging the shed back into darkness. "Mama, his eyes," Alara whispered, her heart hammering, "and his grip." "He is more than he appears," Lyra said, her own face pale in the twilight. "He is dangerous, Alara, but not, I think, to us. But Marcus, Alpha Alaric, the hunt, they'll be looking for any excuse to hurt us. What if they come back?" "They will come back," Lyra said, staring not at the shed, but at the rising moon, pale and thin in the sky. "But the question is, will we be the only ones they find?" The stranger, Kalen, as they learned his name was, remained in the shed for 3 days. He spoke little, answering their questions with grunts or short, clipped phrases. He said he was a traveler from the northern wastes, that his pack had been lost to the blight. It was a common enough lie for a rogue, and they didn't press him. In truth, he was observing. Kalen, High King of the Lycan territories, was not lost. He was testing. His kingdom, a vast, powerful network of packs spanning the continent, was rotting, not from the outside, but from within. The alphas had grown decadent, cruel, obsessed with purity and strength, forgetting the old laws of hospitality and protection. They preyed on the weak, hoarding resources while the Omega caste starved. He had left his throne, disguised as the lowest of the low, walking from pack to pack, searching. He was looking for one, just one, sign that the heart of his people still beat. He had been walking for 6 months. He had found nothing. He had been beaten, spat on, whipped, and chased by hounds. In every pack, he was filth. He was a stray. He was a risk. He had nearly given up. His Lycan spirit, the ancient, powerful wolf within him, was starved, not of food, but of hope. When he stumbled into Silver Creek, he expected the same. He welcomed the final beating from Marcus. It was the end. He could finally let go, let the cold take him, and join his ancestors. His mission a failure. And then Ilara had screamed, and Lyra had offered him bread. It was so small, a stale crust, a drafty shed. But it was everything. It was the spark in the oppressive, suffocating darkness. He spent 3 days in that shed, not just healing. His Lycan physiology meant the bruises were gone in hours, the hunger a dull ache he could control. But watching. He watched Ilara. He saw her give her own meager portion of watery stew to the neighbor's child whose mother was too sick to work. He saw her mend the boots of an old man, taking no payment. He saw the way the other Omegas looked at her, with a mixture of pity and awe. She was their defender, the one who spoke when others were silent. And he saw how she was treated. The sacred hunt was not a hunt for deer. It was the mating hunt. It was a crude, brutal display of power. The pack's unmated females were paraded while the alphas and betas, the pure bloodlines, vied for them. Alpha Alaric, a man Kalen had sized up in an instant as a weak-willed bully, used it as a way to terrorize his pack. On the 3rd night, Ilara was summoned. Not as a participant, her Baron status, a lie perpetuated by Alaric, and Omega blood made her ineligible, but as a server. "It's a humiliation, Mama," Ilara said, her voice tight as she bundled her thin cloak around her. "He does it every year, makes the Omegas serve the feast while the Betas, well, they choose." "Keep your head down," Lyra said, her hands twisting in her apron. "Do not meet their eyes, especially not Alaric's. "He's a pig," Ilara spat. "He's the alpha," Lyra corrected, her voice brittle. "And pigs with power are the most dangerous animals on the mountain." From the shed, Kalen watched her go. He watched her walk toward the great hall, her shoulders straight, her head held high, a lamb walking into a den of half-starved wolves. He had stayed hidden. He had observed, but the king within him, the part of him that was bound by the old law to protect the innocent, was roaring. Lyra came to the shed. Kalen. He had pulled the hood of his ragged cloak up, his face in shadow. She should not have gone. She has no choice. "There is always a choice," he rasped. "You chose to feed me. That was a small choice. This is the alpha." Lyra wrung her hands. "I fear Ilara is not like the others. She has a fire in her. Alaric, he hates that fire. He's been trying to put it out since she was a child, since her father." She stopped. "Go on," Kalen said, his voice quiet. "Her father was different. He came from outside. He believed in the old ways. He taught her that strength was not in the fist, but in the heart." Lyra looked at the ground. Alaric had him executed as a traitor for speaking against him. Kalen felt the blood in his veins turn to ice. "And you are still here. Where do we go?" Lyra whispered, a single tear tracing a path down her worn cheek. "The mountains are death. The other packs are no better. This is the only home we have." "Home," Kalen said, the word tasting like ash. "This is not a home. It's a cage." He stood. He was still dressed in the rags, still caked in the grime had reapplied to maintain his cover. But he was no longer the broken thing they had dragged from the street. His Lycan healing, fueled by the small bits of food, had restored his physical strength. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked, her eyes wide. "A king protects his people," Kalen said. "King? You're mad. You're a beggar." "Tonight," Kalen said, his voice dropping, the ice blue of his eyes seeming to glow in the dark shed, "I am whatever she needs me to be." He slipped past her, a shadow moving through shadows, and headed toward the pulsing, raucous light of the great hall. The noise, the smell, and the arrogance hit Kalen like a physical blow. The great hall was suffocating. It was draped in furs and lit by hundreds of candles. The purebloods, the betas and their families, were engorged on roasted meat and spiced wine, their laughter too loud, their eyes too bright. Alpha Alaric sat on a crude throne, a massive, bearded man whose power came not from respect, but from fear. He was drunk, his eyes roaming the hall, lingering on the unmated females who were huddled together near the fire, trying to look appealing and terrified at the same time. And then he saw Ilara. She was moving through the crowd, a heavy wooden tray laden with tankards balanced on her shoulder. Her face was pale, set in a mask of neutrality. But Kalen could smell her fear. It was a sharp copper scent beneath her usual scent of pine and soap. Marcus, the enforcer, grabbed her arm as she passed. "Well, well, the stray's protector. You clean up. Almost." He ran a greasy hand down her arm. Ilara flinched, pulling away. "Your tankard is empty, enforcer." "Is it?" He laughed, intentionally tipping the tray. Tankards crashed to the floor, ale splashing across the stone. "Sloppy, sloppy. The alpha hates waste." "Clean it up," Alaric's voice boomed, a cruel amusement in it. Ilara's face flushed crimson. She knelt, her hands shaking as she began to gather the broken pottery. "Wait," Alaric said, standing. The hall went silent. He lumbered over to her, his shadow falling over her. He nudged her chin with the toe of his boot. "That's not a proper apology, is it, Omega?" Ilara froze. Kalen, hidden in the minstrel's gallery he'd climbed to, felt his entire body go rigid. The wolf inside him was clawing at his skin, begging to be released. Not yet, not yet. "Apologies, Alpha," Ilara whispered to the floor. "Apologize properly." He put his boot on her shoulder and pushed. "On your belly, like the dog you are." Tears streamed down Ilara's face, mixing with the spilled ale. She was shaking, caught between survival and a sense of violation so profound it was breaking her. "I said," Alaric repeated, pressing harder, "on your Alpha!" The voice, clear and strong, cut through the hall. It was Ilara. She had looked up, her eyes blazing with a defiant fire that eclipsed her tears. "No," she said. The hall drew a collective sharp breath. No one said no to the Alpha. Alaric stared, shocked, then his face contorted in rage. "What did you say, you barren whelp?" "I said no." Ilara slowly got to her feet, her small frame trembling, but her gaze locked with his. "I will clean the mess. I will serve the feast, but I will not get on my belly for you or any other wolf. My father taught me respect. You teach us nothing." For a moment, the Alpha was stunned into silence, and in that moment, Kalen knew. This was the one. This was the spark he had been searching for. Then the rage hit Alaric. He backhanded her. The crack echoed through the hall. Ilara fell, her head hitting the stone floor with a sickening thud. She didn't move. "Insolence!" Alaric roared, his features beginning to twist, the shift already taking him. "She is rogue-blooded! She defies the Alpha! She—" He didn't get to finish. A dark shape launched from the minstrel's gallery. It wasn't a wolf. It wasn't a man. It was a blur of rags and fury. Kalen landed between Alaric and Ilara's prone body in a crouch. He didn't rise. He stayed low, his head bowed, his shoulders shaking. "And who is this?" Alaric laughed, the tension broken. "The beggar! Has he come to lick the scraps from my floor as well?" Marcus grabbed Kalen's shoulder. "I told you to get rid of this filth, Alpha! Let me—" Kalen moved. It was not a punch. It was a precise, calculated strike, faster than a human eye could follow. He drove the heel of his palm upward, connecting with Marcus' chin. There was a snap of teeth and bone. Marcus crumpled, unconscious before he hit the ground. The hall went dead silent again. Kylena slowly rose to his full height. He was still the beggar, caked in grime, but the way he stood, the way he radiated cold, ancient power, was terrifying. "You struck an enforcer," Alaric stammered, his bravado fading. "You struck an innocent," Kylane's voice rasped. It was his beggar's voice, but it carried, filling every corner of the room. "She defied me." "She spoke the truth," Kylane said, "and you are too much of a coward to hear it." "Coward?" Alaric roared. He lunged, his claws extended, his form half-shifted. He was a big wolf, but he was clumsy, drunk, and fueled by ego. Kylane, fueled by centuries of controlled rage, simply sidestepped. He didn't use his Lycan strength. He didn't need to. He used Alaric's own momentum against him, grabbing his arm, twisting, and driving him face first into the stone hearth. Alaric roared in pain as his arm snapped at the elbow. Kylane didn't pause. He grabbed the Alpha by the scruff of his neck, hauling him to his feet, and threw him back toward his throne. "Your hunt," Kylane said, his voice dropping to a growl that was far more wolf than man, "is over." He turned and knelt beside Alara. The entire hall, the betas, the omegas, the enforcers, was frozen. They had just watched a starving, omegaless rogue, a nothing, dismantle their alpha and his top enforcer in less than 10 seconds. Kylane gently brushed the hair from Alara's face. A trickle of blood ran from her temple. His touch was so tender, so completely at odds with the violence he'd just displayed, that it was almost more shocking. She groaned, her eyes fluttering. "Kylane, I am here," he said. You shouldn't." "Hush," he said. "They won't hurt you again." You foolish, stupid man," she whispered, her fingers weakly gripping the front of his ragged tunic. "Hell kill you!" "No," Kalen said, his ice-blue eyes sweeping the hall, meeting the gaze of every cowering wolf. "He won't." He scooped her up into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. He held her close, her head resting against his chest. He is under Lyra's protection," a voice stammered from the crowd. It was the old man whose boots Ilara had mended. "He attacked the Alpha," someone else yelled. "He is a rogue!" The crowd was turning, their shock morphing into a mob. They were afraid of Alaric, but they were more afraid of this. This was chaos. "He is under my protection," Kalen's voice boomed. And this time, it was not the beggar's voice. It was a new sound, a deep, resonant thunder that vibrated in their bones, rattling the tankards on the tables. He started walking toward the door. Ilara held tight. The remaining enforcers, seeing their alpha groaning on the floor, moved to block the exit. "Stand aside," Kalen warned. "Kill him!" Alaric shrieked, cradling his broken arm. "Kill them both! They are traitors!" The enforcers lunged. Kalen did not stop walking. He didn't shift. He simply met them. A raw, invisible force seemed to emanate from him. The first enforcer who reached him was thrown backward, as if he'd hit a stone wall, crashing into the others. They fell in a heap. Kalen walked through the door, out of the suffocating heat and into the sharp, clean cold of the night. He didn't stop until he reached the small, leaning shed. Lyra was there, her face a mask of terror. "What did you do?" "The whole valley. I heard the alphas roar." Kalen gently laid Ilara on the cot. "She's breathing. Her head is bleeding. Get your herbs." Lyra rushed to obey. The authority coming from him was absolute. Ilara's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at him, the moonlight from the small, cracked window illuminating his face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you do that? You've doomed us all." "No," Kalen said, kneeling beside her. "I have saved you." You're not a rogue, are you?" she asked, her hand still weakly clutching his tunic. Kalen took her hand. It was small, calloused and trembling. He covered it with his own, which was large, scarred, and suddenly impossibly warm. "No," he said, his voice raw. "I am not." He heard the baying of the pack. Alaric was gathering his loyalists. They were coming. "Mama," Ilara whispered, her eyes wide with fear as she heard the howls. "They're coming." "I know," Lyra said, her hands shaking as she tried to clean the cut on Ilara's head. "Kalen, you have to run. Take the ravine path. You can lose them in the high passes. We will—" "You will what?" Kalen asked, standing. He looked at the shed door, his expression unreadable. "You will be torn apart for harboring me?" "It doesn't matter," Lyra said. "You saved her. That is all." "You saved me," Kalen corrected, his voice soft. "You gave me bread when I had forgotten what kindness tasted like. You gave me shelter when I was ready to die. You You are the only true wolves I have met in this entire frozen wasteland." The howling was closer now, mixed with angry shouts. "Traitor! Rogue! Kill the Omega whelps!" Ilara struggled to sit up. "Kalen, please, go. I won't have your death on my conscience too." "My death?" Kalen almost smiled. It was a terrifying, grim expression. He turned to face them, the moonlight catching the ice in his eyes. "They are not coming here to kill me." He reached up and pulled the grime-caked matted beard from his chin. It was a fake, expertly crafted. He ran a hand through his hair, pushing the lank, greasy strands back. Even in the dim light, they could see it was not brown, but a deep, silver white. He pulled off the tattered beggar's cloak, revealing a body that was not starved, but lean, corded with muscle, and covered in faint, silvery scars that seemed to map the stars. He was not a beggar. He was magnificent. "What?" Lyra breathed, taking a step back. "What are you?" "I am Kalen," he said. He looked at Ilara, and his gaze softened. "I am the man you saved." "But who are you?" Ilara asked. The door to the shed burst open. Alpha Alaric stood there, his arm in a crude sling, his face purple with rage. Behind him stood 20 of his largest enforcers, all in half-shift, their claws out, their eyes glowing yellow. "There you are, traitors," Alaric snarled. You will pay for this. You will all pay. Seize them. We will have a public execution. We will flay the skin from this rogue and make the moon-touched witches watch." The enforcers surged forward. Lyra grabbed Ilara, pulling her behind her, shielding her. Kalen didn't turn around. "I think," he said, his voice calm, "that you have me mistaken for someone who is afraid." "You are a rogue!" Alaric screamed. "I am disappointed," Kalen said. He turned, slowly. He was no longer the beggar. He was no longer the quiet man. He was radiating an aura so potent, so ancient, that the air crackled around him. The enforcers who had been rushing forward slowed, a primal, instinctual fear stopping them in their tracks. "You speak of purity," Kalen said, taking a step toward them. "You who beat women, you who steal from your Omegas, you who let your pack starve while you grow fat in your hall? I am the Alpha," Alaric warred, but his voice was shaking. "You are a stain," Kalen replied, "and I am here to wash you out. You have no pack. You have no one. He has us," Ilara cried, stepping out from behind her mother. He's a better man than you will ever be." Alaric laughed, a high, manic sound. "He's a dead man. Kill him! Kill him now!" The enforcers, goaded by their alpha's command, surged again. Kalen looked at Ilara, his ice-blue eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't name. "Do not be afraid," he said. And then he shifted. It was not the shift of a normal wolf. There was no cracking of bones, no tearing of skin. It was a becoming. He did not go down on all fours. He grew. The air displaced around him. The roof of the shed splintered and burst upward as he rose. His clothes were obliterated, replaced by a thick, shadow-dark pelt. His features elongated, his eyes becoming molten silver, his hands becoming claws that could shred steel. He stood 9 feet tall. He was bipedal, a monster of myth, a creature of raw, terrifying power. He was not a werewolf. He was a Lycan. The enforcers stopped, paralyzed. They whimpered, their animal instincts screaming at them to submit. Alaric's jaw dropped. No, no, it can't be. The High King, the Lycan, they are myths. Kalen, in his true form, turned his massive head. He sniffed the air, then let out a roar. It was not a sound of anger, it was a sound of judgment. It hit the wolves like a physical wave, throwing them back, making them cover their ears and howl in abject terror. You, Kalen's voice that was not a voice echoed, seeming to come from everywhere at once, have broken the old law. You have abused the weak. You have corrupted this land. You have failed. He took a step, the ground shaking. The enforcers scattered, howling, crawling over each other to get away. Only Alaric remained, frozen in terror. "Please," Alaric whimpered, falling to his knees. "Please, your Majesty, I didn't know." "You didn't know?" Kalen's massive, clawed hand descended. He didn't grab Alaric. He just rested his hand on the Alpha's head, his claws gently resting on his scalp. That is the problem. You did not know. You did not look. He looked past Alaric, at the rest of the pack, who were now emerging from their homes, drawn by the sound. They stared in silent horror and awe at the 9-foot god of death standing in their Omega sector. "Silver Creek Pack!" Kalen's voice boomed, projecting across the valley. "For 6 months I have walked your lands. I have eaten your garbage. I have felt your stones. I, Kalen, the Lycan king, came to you disguised, seeking but one soul who remembered the goddess." His voice softened, but everyone heard it. I found 2. He looked back, his molten silver eyes finding Alara and Lyra, who were huddled together, staring, their minds unable to process what they were seeing. "I found a mother who offered her last crust of bread," Kalen declared. "And I found a daughter who offered her own life to defend a stranger." He turned back to Alaric. "And you offered me nothing but hate. You are not fit to lead. You are not fit to live." "No!" Alaric shrieked. He tried to shift, to fight back. Kalen didn't even flinch. He closed his hand. There was a single, wet crunch. Alaric went limp. Kalen dropped the body, a look of profound disgust on his monstrous face. He was covered in the blood of the Alpha. He turned to the pack. They were all on their knees now, bowing, terrified. "Your Alpha is dead," Kalen announced. "His line is broken. The sacred hunt is abolished. The caste system is over. From this night forward, you are one pack. You will share. You will protect. You will honor the old ways." He looked at them, his gaze sweeping. "Or I will return, and I will not be so gentle." He took a deep breath, and the massive, terrifying form began to recede. The shadows and moonlight seemed to weave around him, and in moments, he was a man again. He was not the beggar, and he was not the king. He was Kalen. He was naked, his body lean and powerful, his silver hair catching the moonlight. He looked vulnerable. Ilara, her fear finally giving way to a different, shaking emotion, untied her own thin cloak and walked toward him. She didn't stop until she was standing in front of him. The entire pack watched. She did not bow. She looked at the blood on him, then at the body of Alaric, then at the cowering pack members. Finally, she looked into his ice-blue eyes. "You lied to us," she whispered, her voice shaking. Kaelin's face, the face of a king, was etched with a pain that had nothing to do with battle. "Yes," he said. "You let my mother give you her last piece of bread. You let me think you were broken." "I was broken, Ilara," he said, his voice raw. "My kingdom is sick. I was sick. I came here. I came everywhere, looking for a cure. I was dying." "And are you cured now?" she asked, her hand still gripping her cloak. "No," he said, "but I am healing." She stared at him, at this impossible man who was a beggar and a god, a monster and a savior. "You're freezing," she said. She wrapped her thin, worn cloak around his broad shoulders. It barely covered him. It was a gesture so small, so intimate in the face of the carnage around them. The entire pack watched as the Lycan king, the executioner of their alpha, allowed an Omega caste girl to dress him. Kaelin's hand came up, his fingers gently touching the fading bruise on her cheek where Alaric had struck her. "He hurt you." "Yes," she said. "He hurt all of us. It's over." "Is it?" She looked at the cowering pack. "You killed the monster, Kaelin, but you can't kill the fear. They're afraid of you. They're afraid of us now." Kaelin looked at the pack, and his kingly authority returned. "Get up," he commanded. They scrambled to their feet. "Your alpha is dead. His enforcers," he gestured to the unconscious Marcus, "are demoted. You need new leadership." "You are our alpha," a beta from the crowd shouted, trying to ingratiate himself. "You are our king." Kaelin shook his head. "I am not your alpha. I have a kingdom to rule. But Silver Creek needs a guardian. It needs a leader who understands the old ways." His gaze fell on Lyra, who was standing by the ruins of her shed, her face pale but her spine straight. "Lyra," he said. The widow's head snapped up. "You will lead the new council," Kaelin declared. "You who remembered the goddess when your alpha had forgotten." "Me?" Lyra stammered. I am just—" "You are the strongest wolf here," Kaelin said. "You will lead them. You will teach them how to be a pack again." He then turned to Marcus, who was stirring, and the other enforcers. You will answer to her. You will rebuild what you have broken, starting with that shed." His gaze finally returned to Ilara. The entire pack was waiting. He was the king. She was the Omega. He had avenged her. Now he would leave. "Ilara," he said, his voice soft again, for her alone.
"Kaelin,"
she replied, her heart a trapped bird in her chest. He took her hand. "My disguise was a lie, but what I felt, what you made me feel, was the only truth I have found in a year."
What did you feel?"
she whispered, afraid of the answer. "Hope," he said, "and warmth, in the coldest place I have ever been." He looked at her, his ice-blue eyes searching her face. "I am a king. I have duties. My pack is broken, and I must return to it. I must go." Ilara's heart shattered. Of course, he was a king. She was her. She had been stupid to even— She pulled her hand back, nodding, her throat too tight to speak. She tried to muster her pride. Then, "Go, and thank you, for Alaric." Kaelin watched her, a deep frown on his face. He saw her walls go up, the same walls that had protected her from Marcus and Alaric. And he realized, in that moment, that he had just done the same thing they had. He had used his power, and now he was leaving her behind. "No," he said, his voice firm.
Ilara looked up, confused.
"No, I am a king," he said, taking her hand again, this time lacing his fingers with hers. "And a king needs a queen. But a Lycan king does not choose." His gaze intensified. "He recognizes." I don't understand." "My wolf," he said, tapping his chest, "the beast that you saw, it has been dormant for a century, cold, alone. It recognized you, Ilara, before I even did. When you screamed, when you stood between me and Marcus, it woke up. It knew its mate." The entire pack gasped. Mate? The word hung in the freezing air, more powerful than the roar, more final than the execution. I can't be," Ilara whispered, pulling back. I'm an omega. They say I'm barren. You are mine," he growled, the word possessive, final. "You are the other half of my soul, and you are not barren. You are moon-touched. You are like her," he nodded to Lyra. "You carry the light, Ilara. I am the shadow. You are the only one who can balance me." He stepped closer, his royal authority gone, replaced by a desperate, vulnerable man. "I am the Lycan king," he said, his voice breaking. "And I am begging. I cannot, I will not rule without you. Come with me, be my queen, help me heal our people, help me heal me." Ilara looked from Kaelin's desperate, open face to her mother's tear-streaked, proud one. She looked at the cowering pack, who were already seeing her not as an omega, but as their goddess. She had spent her entire life being small, being quiet, or trying to be. She had spent her life protecting her mother, hiding, surviving. Now, this man, this king, this monster, this mate, was offering her everything. He wasn't offering to save her. He was asking her to save him. She took a deep breath, the cold air filling her lungs. Her father had told her strength was in the heart. Her mother had taught her strength was in the will. Kaelin had shown her that her heart and her will were the strongest things in the valley. She stepped forward, rising on her toes, and placed her small, chapped hand against his cheek. He was so warm. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like a starving man. "You are a very, very bad beggar, Kaelin," she whispered. A choked, rusty laugh escaped him. "I know. You will have to make it up to me." "Anything," he breathed. "I will not be a quiet queen," she warned, a spark of the old defiant Ilara returning. "I have opinions about everything, about how people should be treated." I am counting on it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Then, yes," she said, "I will come with you. I will be your mate. I will be your queen." He opened his eyes, and the ice blue was gone, replaced by a shimmering silver light. He lowered his head slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. He kissed her. It was not a kiss of passion or of lust. It was a kiss of sealing. It was the old law, the promise, the claiming. It was shadow meeting light. It was the storm finding its center. Around them, the Silver Creek pack, the survivors, the betas, the omegas, they fell to their knees, not in fear this time, but in awe. Their world had been broken. Their tyrant was dead, and in his place, a new moon was rising. It took weeks. Kaelin could not just leave. He was a king, and this was now his protectorate. He and Ilara, with Lyra at their side, rebuilt Silver Creek from the ground up.
The great hall was opened, its larders emptied and shared. The caste lines were erased. The enforcers, under Kalen's watchful eye and Lyra's sharp command, were put to work rebuilding the Omega sector, not as hovels, but homes. Kalen taught them the old ways, not of strength, but of community. And Ilara taught him.
She taught him how to laugh again, a real laugh, not the grim smile of a warrior. She taught him patience. She, who had nothing, showed him the value of small things, a hot-baked potato, a mended cloak, a moment of silence watching the snowfall. He was still the Lycan. He was still the 9-foot shadow beast when he needed to be, and when rogue packs from the north, hearing of Alaric's fall, learned quickly that the myths were real. But to Ilara, he was just Kalen. On the night of the full moon, 1 month after he had torn her world apart and rebuilt it, he took her to the high pass, overlooking the valley. The lights of the pack burned bright below, a true community, warm and safe. "It's beautiful," Ilara whispered, pulling her new thick fur cloak around her. It had been a gift from Kalen, made from the pelt of a shadow stalker he had hunted. "It is," he agreed, his arms sliding around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "But it is not our home." "No," she said, leaning into his strength. "Our home is waiting." "Are you afraid?" he asked. "To see the world? To see my world? My court? It is worse than Alaric's, more subtle, more dangerous." Ilara turned in his arms, her hands on his chest. She looked up at the magnificent, silver-haired king who had, for a time, been her beggar. "They will not like me," she said, stating a fact. "No," he said, his face grim. "They will see an Omega. They will see a nobody. They will try to break you." "Let them try," Ilara said, a fierce, bright smile spreading across her face. "They will learn what Alaric learned, and what you learned, my king." "And what is that?" Kalen asked, a smile touching his own lips. "That I am not so easily broken," she said. "And I am not a good girl. I do not stay quiet. And I am not afraid of the dark." Kalen laughed, a real full-bellied sound that echoed down the mountain. He pulled her close and kissed her, a real kiss this time, full of fire and promise and the future. "Good," he whispered against her lips, his ice-blue eyes dancing. "Because, my love, my light, my queen, the darkness is terrified of you." He sealed his claim, and under the light of the goddess's full moon, the Lycan king and his Omega queen prepared to go home.